Okay, so let's start. Hello, everyone. Salam, namaste, adab, and welcome to Indian diasporas. Today's event is on being a Muslim in New India. The speaker is Ziya Us Salam Sahab. He is the associate editor of The Hindu. He is an author, columnist, a public intellectual. His books, Till Talaq Do Us Part, Inside the Tabligh Jamaat, Women in Masjid, Shaheen Bagh, Lynch Files, and of Saffron Flags and Skull Caps. And one of the coming book is the title of the talk, Being a Muslim in New India, instead of it being a Muslim in Hindu India. So, and the introductory remarks will be given by Anjana Rajan, who herself was a former deputy editor of The Hindu. And she is a classic dancer. So she opted for her, passion and love for the classical dance. And so she will be doing the introductory remarks, and concluding remarks will be given by Manisha Mathews, who is a very well-known publishing consultant and executive. She is presently director of Atlantic Books, formerly vice president of Sage Publishing India, visiting faculty of management at Delhi and many other institutes. So welcome you all. And now I request Anjana Rajan to do the introductory remarks. Please.
Thank you, sir.
Adab, namaste. Thank you for asking me to participate in this event. I'm sending this recorded message because my internet connection is just not working, and I will try to log in using data, but it may be a very patchy call. I just want to say, in the context of this topic that's going to be discussed today, being a Muslim in today's India, it is a daily heartache for those of us who consider ourselves Indian first, and also for those of us who, by accident of birth, that's all I can say, have been born into the majority community of this country. It's something that fills us with knots in the heart, because we don't agree with this hate-mongering, with this divisive politics that has been rending the country apart for so many years. We don't agree with it, and yet the wave has been such that we find it is not a distant discussion anymore among certain fringe politicians. It is not a discussion only for rabid newscasters either. It is something that has entered our homes and our neighborhoods, and the people with whom we interact on a daily basis for work and for family reasons. There was a time I grew up in the 60s when, if you went abroad, as my family did go when my father was posted in the United States and in Switzerland, other Indians you met, we all would join Indian associations, and everyone was an Indian. It didn't matter whether you belonged to North or South, which was your mother tongue. It didn't matter what religion you belonged to. Everybody was an Indian. And for every city, there would be maybe one Indian association back in the 60s, because there were so few Indians abroad. Later, it slowly started splintering, so that now you have associations for Telugu-speaking people, associations for Gujarati-speaking people, separate associations for the Tamil-speaking people, separate associations for Hindi, Bengali, Odia, you name it. We have splintered so much. I think it was a tendency that we had already in India. Among Indians, our communities were prone to that split, and that is why I think we fell back in the 1940s, leading partition. We fell for that kind of divisive politics, but that's the reason why maybe today also. And another reason that I think people have fallen for it is because all these decades, the middle class communities have taught their children keep your head down, study, and study means rote learning. It has not contributed to their intellectual development. So that now they are willing to accept all the vitriol that is dished out, all the non-facts that are dished out in the name of awareness. And back to what a person who belongs to the majority community may feel, a person who is secular by nature and by upbringing. We can't even talk to our own family members because families are just split, and you feel ashamed to say that you are related to people who are passing on the kind of, they're not just unkind, they are just rabid messages which are inciting people to the worst dregs that humanity can fall to. And I'm glad in a way that these discussions are taking place because perhaps they will raise awareness among those who are still not quite decided what direction we as people of this country want this country to take. I think they may realize, perhaps they will see the human angle of this. I think that Mr. Ziya Us Salam, who has offered so many books on furthering an understanding of Islam and books that take a critical look at his own religion as well as a critical look at our society. I am amazed at the way that he is able to express both the feelings of a private citizen and to explain things in a manner that a journalist who takes his duty to be objective, to balance these two necessities, I think it is remarkable. And the state that India is in today, I can only hope that perhaps the tide is turning because people are becoming aware. And at the same time, I find that people are trying to turn their face away from the reality. When I share certain videos of people that I know who are speaking about the situation against the Muslim community and other minorities also, when I share these videos, some people respond with a lot of grief and say, this is terrible, this is not the India that we knew and grew up in. And other people insist on saying, no, this is not right. What are they talking about? They're exaggerating. Or they say, oh, these journalists, they have their own agenda. And when we talk about what happened in Gurgaon, I wondered and I asked people, how much closer you wanted to get? Your kids are working in those areas. They were sent home. How much closer home do you want to get? There are all kinds of rabid messages on our RWA WhatsApp groups where you're only supposed to be talking about plumbing and the electrical fixtures and fixing the cement on the walls. There also people are sharing this. How much closer, how much more in the heart do you want it to grow? I think the situation of our country is really, really critical. It is critically ill right now, our social condition. And I thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this discussion. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Here, I'll request Aditya ji to say a few words and we can continue later on. If you would like to make some comment, that's fine. Because of these issues, we are unnecessarily holding.
Yeah.
Aditya ji, please.
Aditya ji, unmute yourself. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem. I'll be very brief. You have already mentioned all the books that Ziya Saab has written, and we want to hear him, except to say that Ziya is a very brave journalist. I've had the privilege of reviewing his book and speaking on his book at one occasion. And one of the important things I think he does in his writing is to bring home, as I think Anjana ji was also mentioning in the beginning, bring home to all of us so many things that we do not yet understand about what it means to be a Muslim in India. And not only the positive things, we all talk about all the positive stories, etc. But what anguish in this new situation the Muslim families go through is something that Ziya brings out extremely well. That is why one of the reasons in Delhi now at the moment, now in fact in 26 centers in the country, we are part of a movement to start Mere Ghar Aake To Dekho. Get Hindu families to go into Muslim houses and vice versa, and at least begin to even understand what is happening. As he wrote in one of his book, Under the Skull Caps, we just see the skull cap और उसके नीचे क्या हो रहा है कुछ नहीं पता होता हमें. So it's a great pleasure. I mean, look at the number of people who want to hear him has sort of doubled already, and I'm looking forward to hearing Ziya. There's nothing more I want to say at this point of time. Much power to people like him.
Thank you so much. So now, Ziya Sahib, it is your turn. People are anxious to hear you. Unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself. Can you unmute? Yes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Professor Razi and Professor Mukherjee and Anjana Rajan for all the lovely, kind words. And I think in today's age, honestly speaking, one does need love. And as you said at the beginning, and Professor Mukherjee also said, I'm an Indian Muslim and in many ways an orphan. I'm a guy who is not sought out by anybody in India today. Politicians across political parties consider me to be a bad omen. They want my votes, some of them at least, but they don't want my company. They don't want to be seen eating with me in an iftar anymore. They don't want to come down to my house, as Professor Mukherjee said, Mere Ghar Aake To Dekho. They are not willing to be seen with any Muslim in their house. And we recently had the case of the Chief Minister of Assam saying it in as many words that he does not need Muslim votes. This is the first time probably in the history of independent India that a politician went public saying he does not need the votes of a particular community. Because come the elections, the common Indian is regarded as a king. The politicians who may not look at them for the other 5 years at all do not leave any opportunity go begging at the time of elections for one more vote. We have had all these ridiculous instances of Hema Malini lifting haystack in Mathura, to Jayaprada drinking water from hand pump, to other BJP MLAs trying their hand at teaching children in a village school. But now for the first time, I'm being told that I'm a Muslim and the BJP chief minister in Assam will not need my vote, no matter what the result of the election might be. This by itself is sad, but what is probably even worse today is that we are, all of us, not just Muslims, living in the age of Islamophobia in India. As a Muslim, I'm not living in the age of Islamophobia. I'm merely existing, trying to breathe in this atmosphere when my morning starts with a video of a lynching somewhere in some obscure part of Delhi or India, and the day continues with hate speeches by numerous elements associated with the ruling dispensation in the country. When I go out in public space, if I'm manifestly Muslim, as I am, or there are countless men with a better beard and burqa-clad, hijab-clad women, this by itself becomes a brave action. When a common appearance of an individual becomes an act of bravery, one can understand how far have we traveled from the days when schools used to sing Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara. Talking of Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara, we had a very sad instance of a school in Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh, where the principal of the school was sacked merely because The school children were singing Lab Pe Aati Hai Dua Meri. It was penned by Muhammad Iqbal and has been sung in schools across North India and even in South India, in places like Hyderabad, without any religious connotation until now. For the first time, the usage of the word Allah in the poem upset some parents. They went and complained to the school principal, registered an FIR. The school authorities were forced to send the Shiksha Mitra, the part-time the teacher over there, and the principal packing from the school. This was not the only instance. We had another instance in Hathras in Uttar Pradesh for a similar kind of reason. Again, the principal and the teacher were sacked because they made the cardinal mistake of asking Indian students across religion to sing a poem composed by an Indian Muslim. But that's not all. We are living in an age when an 8-year-old Muslim girl is gang raped in Kathua in Jammu and Kashmir. And to our horror, unbelievable horror, we soon had the spectacle of women and men associated with the BJP holding the tricolor and the Bhagwa Dhwaj, taking out a rally in support of the people who were accused of gang rape. This was probably the first instance when people came out on the streets against the girl who was the victim and in favor of the rapist. If any instance was needed to tell us that today India does not care about its Muslims and everything will be decided according to the dictate of Hindutva powers that be, this was a telling instance. More recently, we had equally sad and benumbing instances. We had a school in Gujarat earlier this year, maybe in April, May rather, which celebrated Eid with all their students, and there was a skit on the occasion. Again, some parents took objection to the fact that a school was celebrating Eid, whereas we have all grown in that atmosphere when schools celebrated Holi, Diwali, Eid, Christmas, and every festival. Something even worse happened closer to Delhi in Dehradun. A second standard student was there. His parents took objection that in a story the students were supposed to read as part of the textbook, the child was referring to his parents as Ammi and Abbu. And the local parents took, again, objection to something like that how can you ask my child to read the words Ammi and Abbu? And he started calling me by those names at home. If in that limited mindset, there is only one language for India. There's only one way of being an Indian. There's only one language you're supposed to speak. There's only one religion you're supposed to adhere to. Whatever our constitution says, the reality of India today is we are living in Hindutva India, and we are living at the mercy of the mob. In the years gone by, only the state had the power to punish any wrongdoer. Today, the state seems to have surrendered its authority to the mob on the street. It all began on 28 September 2015, when Muhammad Akhlaq in the township of Dadri in western UP was dragged out of his bedroom to the city square, and a mob pounced upon him. People beat him with sticks, with axes, with iron rods until he ceased to breathe. When finally his body was surrendered to his family for burial, he could not be given a proper ritual bath. The simple reason was his skull, his collarbone, his ribcage, his spine, his hands, everything was broken. And guess what did the police do? They came and filed an FIR, initially against unknown people who attacked him, and then against his family members too. Akhlaq was buried as a criminal in India. So his involvement in the alleged cow slaughter is yet to be proved. If that was sad and tragic and criminal, what happened after that was even worse. One of the accused of Akhlaq's murder, Ravin Sisodia, he passed away in jail. His family and village people alleged that it was out of atrocity met to him in the jail. The police reckoned it was otherwise, that it was a natural death and he had got dengue. The villagers refused to carry out his cremation. And we had this spectacle of the Union Minister of Culture, Mahesh Sharma, going to the house of Ravin Sisodia, meeting the villagers over there, and wrapping the body of the murder accused of Muhammad Akhlaq in our beloved tricolor. This treatment is reserved for soldiers who die fighting on the border, be it China or Pakistan or elsewhere. There was one straightforward message which our Union Minister was sending to the larger country in general and to Muslims in particular. To kill a Muslim was a national honor, was a brave deed, good enough for, if you die doing that, for your body to be wrapped in the tricolor. We had never witnessed something like that. And then it continued. We had another Union Minister not wanting to be left out in Jharkhand, when 8 convicts who were convicted in the lynching of Alimuddin Ansari were released on bail by a court. The Union Minister Jayant Sinha was on hand to garland them, to give a box of sweets to each one of them. If again anybody wanted to be told that killing Muslim was a celebration to be marked with distribution of sweets, he wasn't wrong. And very soon, more recently, actually last year on Independence Day, it was reinforced to all those who still believe in the idea of India, that yes, there is law, all are equal, but some are more equal than others. I'm referring to the case of our sister Bilqis from Gujarat. The men who were convicted of gang rape and were supposed to spend a lifetime in jail were released by the state government on supposedly their good conduct. When these men were released, the convicted gang rapist of Bilqis, murderer of her 3-year-old baby, murderer of her sister, murderer of her mother, they were received with garlands. To this day, the case is going on now in the Supreme Court. Bilqis Bano, for the last 1 year, has lived a life in trauma, just as she has lived since 2002 when the tragedy took place. Today, one lynching is followed by another lynching, and then another lynching, and then another lynching. It's unending. It's suffocating. It makes you want to flee. But then you tell yourself that we shall overcome. We have to fight another day. But things don't get easier by belief. Today, very recently in February this year, we had the case in Haryana where 2 Muslim men, Nasir and Junaid, were accused of cow slaughter. They were lynched and then burned inside their car. Their car was set on fire while the men were alive inside, screaming for help. Something similar happened earlier in Hapur in western UP, not too far from Delhi, where Qasim was attacked by a mob. And similarly, while they were killing him, they were bypassers over there, and he asked for help. He asked for water for one final time. And all that the mob did was to piss in his mouth. Nobody raised a fuss. The men who were arrested were out on bail again to a royal tree. It has happened over and over again since from 2015 to 2019. Whenever the mob pounced upon a Muslim man, it was always with the allegation of cow slaughter, that the man was carrying a calf or he was carrying a cow, he was transporting cattle with the idea of possible slaughter later on. Nobody was ever caught slaughtering a cow. Nobody was ever caught taking the skin somewhere after slaughter. It is just the allegation, the mere suspicion that maybe this man will do something, and that is enough to take an innocent life. But after 2019, even that pretense of cow slaughter has been largely done away with. It started with the lynching of Tabriz Ansari in Uttar Pradesh. Now, the very sight of a Muslim man in a small town in India, or maybe in a village, a bearded man, is sufficient for a mob to pounce upon him to kill him. Often, the modus operandi is very similar. They ask him to say Jai Shri Ram. If he says, he earns himself a few more minutes from this earth. If he doesn't, they pounce upon him straight away. Otherwise, they ask him to recite the kalma, the first tenet of Islam, or say Allahu Akbar. If he's able to recite both of them, they realize that he is Muslim, even if he is not bearded, and then they pounce upon him. In rare cases, as we saw in Northeast Delhi violence in February 2020, men who just wore usual trousers and shirt or jeans t-shirt were asked to lower their trousers. The absence of foreskin was a life-threatening condition for multitudes in Delhi, ruled by Aam Aadmi Party in the city, with the police under the central government headed by Narendra Modi. And then they were killed. But it didn't end there. There were other instances after Tabriz Ansari and after Delhi, where every time, a Muslim was waylaid, attacked, killed. The police invariably filed an FIR against unknown people until some social activists stepped in and some family members of the accused prevailed upon the police to add the names of the accused. Then those names were added. In many cases, the deceased was also party to his own murder. He was also named in the police complaint or FIR in many cases. So these are the realities of India today. But this is not all. If transporting cow could end with your life on the streets of India, there are other cases where Muslims are being denied to earn their livelihood with dignity. The Prime Minister says Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. But where is Sabka Saath every Navratra when the butchers or the meat merchants are not allowed to open their shops by many chief ministers in BJP ruled states, be it Haryana, be it Madhya Pradesh, be it Uttar Pradesh, and even in Delhi through the mayor's order. It seems those 18 days of Navratra, twice a year, 9 days each, are absolutely supreme for the faith of the majority. And the minority community cannot even earn its living. The excuse which is usually handed out, as Ms. Mukherjee said, is about Kanwar Yatra route, that these shops are on the route of Kanwar Yatra and so on and so forth. But nobody talks of a Muslim's right to earn a livelihood, even if somebody else is fasting or celebrating or praying. After all, when a Muslim fasts in the month of Ramzan or prays every day, he doesn't ask everybody else to fast, everybody else to stop drinking, or people to stop consuming pork, which a Muslim is not supposed to consume. The message which is being sent to Muslims is, yes, India is a land of many faiths, but one faith is supreme, and you have to respect that. Even as BJP chief ministers have been asking Muslim shopkeepers not to open meat shops during Navratra, and now even during the month of Sawan or Shravan. And this time, the month of Shravan in North India is supposed to be of 59 days. So effectively for 2 months, these people are out of job, and then 18 other days. Virtually 78 days in a year, they cannot earn a living, but it doesn't stop at that. When people go for Kanwar Yatra, they are showered with rose petals. Bureaucrats are instructed to take helicopter rides and chart these rose petals on people undergoing going for pilgrimage. But when Eid comes, there is always that instruction from various chief ministers in different states that there should be no celebration on the road, no namaz offered outside masjid. And if you see the Islamic principle about offering namaz outside masjid, yes, we are on the wrong foot in the sense that Islam asks you to pray in the masjid and your prayer should not inconvenience anybody. But having said that, today namaz has become an anathema to the larger Hindutva society. And please note, I'm using the word Hindutva, not Hindu, because Alhamdulillah, I have millions of Hindu brothers and sisters who have not bought these ideologies, these hatred, and this bigotry. Today, when a Muslim prays on a bench at a railway station, he is arrested by police. When a Muslim woman prays in the basement of a hospital because her family member is admitted over there and she's praying to Allah for his well-being, she is given a warning by the hospital management that you should not be seen offering namaz in hospital at all. But it does not end there. A Muslim cannot offer namaz outside masjid. A Muslim cannot offer namaz on a railway platform. A Muslim cannot offer namaz in a hospital in complete privacy. But also now, Muslims cannot offer namaz in a group in the privacy of their home, as we discovered in this Ramzan in Moradabad, where a fine of 5 lakh rupees each was levied on the host of that place and also the people who participated in namaz. The Muslim prayer on namaz is seen from the public eye by certain section of society is a crime today, and a crime good enough to land you in jail or at least to be fined heavily by the authorities that be. And these are the same authorities which turn on Nelson's eye and a deaf ear to all that goes on in the name of Ram Navami and Hanuman Jayanti every year. When these processions used to take place in our childhood, they were sparsely attended and invariably peaceful. Where they came from and how they ended, they didn't disturb anybody's life. But today it seems most of the people who participate in Ram Navami processions and Hanuman Jayanti processions do not have worship or piety on their mind. Instead of going to a temple to celebrate over there or to offer their worship over there, these people go to the nearest mosque. They plant themselves outside the mosque. For a long time, they raise provocative slogans. In some cases, they pelt stones at the mosque. In a few others, they climb the gate or the dome, and then they plant a saffron flag over there. We know what used to happen in medieval India. When one king used to defeat another, he would invariably take the place of worship of that king, build his own worship place over there, or at the very least plant a flag over there. This is what these Hanuman Jayanti processions and Ram Navami processions are in danger of being reduced to. The idea is no longer worship. The idea is aggression, bigotry, and to tell the Muslims, where do you stand in today's India? Talking of attacking masjids on Ram Navami or otherwise, it has become a hobby for many elements of Hindutva Brigade, many people of Vishwa Hindu Parishad, many people of Bajrang Dal, and sundry other organizations which have just mushroomed over the last 4 or 5 years in Indian polity and society. In Northeast Delhi violence in February 2020, 19 places of Muslim worship were attacked, damaged, in many cases reduced to ashes. In almost every case, the mob raised two slogans. One was Jai Shri Ram, and that they said when they were about to enter the masjid. And when they had conquered the masjid and planted a saffron flag on the minar or on the dome, that is when they shouted Jai Shri Ram. But inside, when the mob entered the masjid, in the wuzu khana area, in the prayer hall of the masjid, they did not say Jai Shri Ram or any such thing. They said, Har masjid Babri bana do. Mullah ki har masjid Babri bana. The inspiration they got was probably from December 6, 1992, and the final Supreme Court verdict. They came to believe that in today's India, they can attack any mosque, they can destroy any mosque, they can set any mosque on fire, and the law will not catch up with them. And in most cases, their faith has been justified by the authorities that we. In Northeast Delhi, in Karawal Nagar, we had this spectacle of a mosque being conquered by the Hindutva mob and idol of Durga being placed at the threshold of the mosque. The idol stayed there for a few days until Jamiat Ulema Hind intervened, and gradually they were able to restore order to the masjid, remove the idol respectfully, remove the saffron flag with the help of a few well-meaning Hindu residents of the area, and restore the mosque to its earlier condition. But in today's India, every mosque is in danger. If your history goes back 800 years, or if it goes back 300 years, it is no guarantee that the mosque will continue to stay in the days to come. We've had 14 mosques being attacked in the recent violence in Haryana, in Nuh. We have a list of 122 mosques in Delhi, which are faced with the prospect of demolition, allegedly because they are fully or partially built it on public land, which they do not own. Even though there is one hilarious instance, there is a mosque which has come up, which has been there for ages near a railway track on Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg in Delhi, right opposite Supreme Court. And that has also been a dargah. The dargah is about 350 years old. And the letter which was pasted to the authorities of the masjid said this is a railway land. Railways came up in India in 1850s. The dargah came up 350 years ago. So who was occupying whose land? Nobody bothered to answer. Again, is the norm. You say anything about a Muslim, that he has usurped land, he has encroached upon public land, or he was hurting such and such community sentiments, he was going to kill a cow, he was going to do whatever. Everything passes today because there is no accountability in today's India. A Muslim today in India is like Shudra in ancient India. People could kill a Shudra, ask him not to live at a particular place, rather live only at a particular place, do only this job and nothing else, nothing more. And we see that Shudra kind of treatment being meted to Muslims across the board. Just because somebody speaks English, works in an MNC, or has held positions of authority in Indian government, does not say a Muslim who tries to get a house on rent in the so-called cosmopolitan Delhi or Mumbai or Ahmedabad is shunned like things. If he tries to buy a house in the same colony, he meets with the same fate. We had a very sad instance of UP, again from Moradabad, where one Hindu gentleman was selling his house to a Muslim in a locality which was predominantly Hindu. His neighbors put pressure on him to cancel the deed. They could not bear the thought of staying with a Muslim. We have all those laws in Gujarat where a foreigner can come and buy property, but a Muslim cannot go and buy property in certain parts of the city, certain districts of the state. Where have we come? Are we still a country governed by the Constitution of India, which says that we, the people, we have decided to govern ourselves as a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic? Socialism went out of the window a few years ago. Secularism has died more recently. In 2019, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi led the BJP to a historic victory, the first thing he told the people, his fans, and the media were assembled there, that in this election, no party could use the word secular as part of their election campaign. In the great success of Narendra Modi lies the great defeat of India. And he was not wrong, because all political parties, barring Owaisi Sa's party, Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin, they shy away from using the word Muslim in their election campaign. We have Congress Minister Ghulam Nabi Azad actually giving interview to the press, and that was when he was with the Congress and not an individual who is today searching for an identity all over again. He said, now in the elections, Congress candidates do not call me to canvass for them, to campaign for them, to ask for votes. Because the idea was, if a Muslim was seen seeking votes for the Congress, the party was supposed to be catering only to Muslims and not to anybody else. And come to think of it, this was the party of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Dr. Zakir Hussain, and so many others over the years. Today, the reality is no political party, not just a Congress, even if it is the Samajwadi Party, or if it is, say, any of the regional parties like Telugu Desam or YSR Congress or GMK and others, they don't want to use the word Muslim from a public platform. Yes, they want Muslim vote, and they're confident that they will get the Muslim vote because of the TINA factor. There is no alternative. But they feel that if they seek Muslim vote or they even put up Muslim candidates today, then they stand to lose Hindu vote. It is disturbing for a Muslim and sad for a Muslim, but very disrespectful of our Hindu countrymen and women. This assumption that they will not come out and vote for a political party because its main campaigner was a Muslim in that particular seat, or Rahul Gandhi or Mamata Banerjee or Akhilesh Yadav went and talked of giving justice to Muslims or anything of that kind, then the Hindus will go away from that party. Then I guess these people are underestimating the strength, the moral strength of our Hindu countrymen. But what they are pandering to is soft Hindutva. No political party is taking on Hindutva head on today, with the possible exception of the only leader, Lalu Prasad Yadav. Otherwise, nobody challenges Hindutva. Nobody says that what you are doing is not just morally wrong, but constitutionally wrong and something which cannot be defended in the court of justice. Nobody talks on those lines. But there's a reason. The ruling dispensation has moved along in a systematic manner to other Indian Muslims, other as in the outsider, not just Muslims, but also Christians to a lesser extent. Way back in the 1930s, M.S. Golwalkar and before him Savarkar had this idea of Pitru Bhumi and Punya Bhumi, wherein they said India belongs to those whose Pitru Bhumi, that is fatherland, and Punya Bhumi, that is sacred land, lies within the geographical confines of our country. And all those whose Punya Bhumi is abroad, though their Pitru Bhumi is here, meaning Muslims and Christians, who were born here and who have been living here for ages, but whose sacred land lies abroad. They cannot be Indian citizens. At the very most, they can live at the mercy of the majority community, asking for no rights, demanding no equality. This is what Golwalkar said in 1930s, and this is what Government of India, through our parliament, proved when CAA bill was first passed by the parliament in December 2019. I think it is 11 December, which said that anybody who comes from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, from the neighboring countries, who is not a Muslim, will be given Indian citizenship on priority. The only thing which disqualified a person seeking citizenship of India, say from Pakistan or Afghanistan or Bangladesh, etc., was his religion. If he happened to be even a nominal Muslim, then the doors of India were closed. This was directly contradictory to what our constitution says through Article 14 and Article 25 and all the citizenship laws, etc. Predictably, there were protests against CAA, peaceful protests led by the brave women of Shaheen Bagh. The protest by these women started on 15 December 2019 and they continued till COVID came calling. They were all these brave women, 80-year-old, 85-year-old, 90-year-old, who were just, so to say, housewives. Most of them had probably never even gone to the local grocery shop to pick up their bread, butter, etc. They were completely dependent on the men of the society. Now, for the first time, they stepped out of their homes, not because they wanted to, but because they realized that their very existence was in danger. They had no identity all these years because beyond being a mother or a grandmother or wife of somebody. But now with the CAA coming into force, or at least they believe that it's coming into force at that time, they realized that they could be dispossessed of their citizenship. Yes, the government did tell that it will not apply to any Indian citizen. But the earlier remark of the Home Minister that there is a chronology of NRC, NPR, and CAA, that said it all. And these women who did not own a piece of land, who did not own the telephone at their home, who did not have the gas connection under their name, and who had no office, no property, anything to show their Indian status that they have been here for ages, except their voter ID and their maybe in some cases passport and Aadhaar card. They realized that if CAA comes into force and the government has a national kind of data, collects data from all citizens to show their papers, they have nothing to show. Because again, the Home Minister had gone on record that the mere fact that you have an Aadhaar card or a voter ID card or a passport is not sufficient to prove your citizenship. So these women came out on the streets of India in the biting cold of Delhi when the temperature was 1 degree, 2 degree at night. They were sleeping under an open sky, holding up the Constitution of India in one hand and their Janamas or the Quran in the other hand. On 31st December, when most of us were probably partying in some hotel or hanging out with our friends, these brave ladies were singing national anthem and Sare Jahan Se Acha at midnight, pledging that they will fight on for the Constitution of India, pledging they will uphold the Constitution given to us by Ambedkar. They stood for Ambedkar's Rashtra, not Hindu Rashtra. There was very little the government could do to send them packing. All the ministers refused to interact with them. Every day they stood there in the evening asking the Prime Minister to talk to them. They even had these interesting placards saying, Modi, tum kab aaoge? Modi, when will you come? But obviously the Prime Minister never went, not the Home Minister or anybody else. Talking to the Prime Minister, he never goes to any Muslim place. All these lynching victims, he has not been to the house of any one of those Muslim lynching victims. He has not announced any compensation for any of those victims. All the mosques which have been attacked, not once has he tweeted about it or asked people to maintain harmony. So coming back to CAA and Shaheen Bagh, this was one law the government of India framed to tell Muslims that they are the others in modern India. But it did not stop at that. One state government after another state government ruled by the BJP, they framed laws against love jihad. Love jihad is an objectionable term. Jihad per se is when you fight your inner impulse, you control your inner impulse against sinning. In some cases, it is against about taking on the opponents also with weapons, provided they provoke. But in the terminology of the BJP, excuse me, jihad is anything but that, a struggle to control our own impulse or a struggle against an enemy who starts a war or a battle. They started this concept of love jihad in the sense that if a Muslim man wants to marry a Hindu woman, he is immediately dubbed suspicious. In many cases, he is physically roughed up in the streets. And now, after all these laws have been framed by the BJP governments in Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand, in Haryana, in Uttar Pradesh, in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, in Maharashtra, in Karnataka, if a Muslim man marries a Hindu woman, he is accused of love jihad and he is immediately put on jail. Even if the girl says that it is out of own will and both of them are adults. This treatment is not meted out to anybody else. Today, a Sikh man can go and marry any Hindu woman. A Christian man can go and marry any Hindu woman. Or a Buddhist or a Jain can go, a Parsi can go. But a Muslim cannot. Interestingly, a Muslim woman can marry a Hindu man, but not vice versa. Because in the convoluted ideology of these Hindutva proponents, a woman is just a child producing machine. They feel that if a Hindu girl marries a Muslim guy, she is going to become a child producing factory for him and she is going to mother endless number of Muslim children. Whereas if a Muslim girl marries a Hindu guy, then she comes into our family and she mothers Hindu children. That is why quite some time back, they had given a slogan of Beti Bachao Bahu Lao, to bring a Muslim daughter as your Muslim girl as your daughter-in-law, but don't give your daughter to a Muslim as his daughter. It was fine as far as it was confined to certain strata of society and some people, but when governments make it a law, you understand that the government is now stepping into every aspect of a Muslim person's life. It was not just about not being allowed to marry a Hindu woman without the accusation of love jihad. It's also about instant triple talaq. One understands that there is no mention of instant triple talaq in the Quran, and there is a clear-cut procedure for divorce outlined by the Quran through Surah Baqarah and Surah Talaq, wherein there has to be a difference of at least one menstrual cycle each between a particular one pronouncement and other pronouncement. Fortunately, in India, the Supreme Court in, I think, August 2017, 22 August 2017, invalidated instant triple talaq, that now if you give many divorces to your wife at one go, it will not be a valid divorce and she will continue to be your wife. Just as Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu had said some 14 years ago, when a lady had come to him complaining of instant triple talaq by her husband, he restored her marital rights when she wished to go back to her husband. Unfortunately, what happened in India was after the Supreme Court judgment, the government was in a tearing hurry to frame law against the triple talaq. So first ordinances were passed when the parliament was not in session, and then a law was made wherein if a Muslim man gives triple talaq to his wife, he commits a crime. So a Muslim man divorcing his wife in a certain way, which the Supreme Court says is invalid and his marriage sustains, is held up for a crime he does not commit. A Christian man or Hindu man or person from any other community can divorce his partner in approved manner. Whereas a Muslim man, if he divorces his wife in a manner which is not regarded as appropriate by the Supreme Court, he is not doing something wrong on the civil platform according to civil law, but he is treated in the criminal laws of the country. This is a treatment reserved only for Muslims. But that's not all. We have all heard, read, or seen about bulldozers. This has become a new symbol of Hindutva, new symbol of a government keen to show Muslims, and in some cases, even those who take on the government's interpretation of the law, their place. We had this tragic instance in Allahabad, where one person who had opposed the government and criticized Nupur Sharma, who had said certain words unbecoming about the Prophet, his house was razed to the ground. That was probably just about testing waters. After that, the bulldozers started visiting Muslim premises with increasing frequency and of late with regularity. We had the case in Khargone in Madhya Pradesh, where Muslim property was bulldozed. There was even one sad case of a man who had no arms, and his shop was bulldozed too. We had a case of a 70-year-old lady who had got money from the government under some prime minister's relief for construction of houses. Her house was also demolished. Then it came to Delhi in Jahangirpuri. Then it went to Gujarat. Then it went to Karnataka. And then finally, it went to Haryana recently, where the property of Muslims was bulldozed by the authorities until the High Court of Chandigarh and Punjab intervened, called it in as many words, state-sponsored ethnic cleansing. But that was one instance where the judiciary stamped it. In most cases, Muslims do not get justice from any forum. We had this sad spectacle of another Muslim's property in Madhya Pradesh being bulldozed to the accompaniment of live music, DJ, people celebrating on the road. Now, this is the same country where people used to go to each other's house on Eid, on Diwali, Christmas, New Year, etc. And where in COVID, there were so many cases of Muslim men doing the last rituals of Hindu men or women and vice versa. But this kind of virus has just caught up over the last 2-3 years, where demolition of Muslim property is cheered by the masses. When a Muslim man is lynched and that video is put up online by the attackers, it gets 1 million retweets, million likes, etc. within a couple of days and so on. It's like every time you kill Muslim, every time you demolish his property, every time you attack a mosque, you become a hero. And even as the mob pretends or claims to be a hero, we have an anti-hero occupying the seat of power who refuses to say a word. Unfortunately, his silence is a stain on his speech. Not that he minds it too much, because after all, we had this sad case where he told us that you can recognize a protester, a community through its clothes. जो इंसान कपड़ों से पहचाने किसी इंसान को, you can understand there is nothing called equality in his mind. There is nothing called integrity of the nation and brotherhood on his mind. And we are living through this very dark stage of Islamophobia with very little hope of things getting better in the foreseeable future, barring a turn of fate in 2024 elections. Because be it a bulldozer, be it a madrasa, be it a mosque, be it any MP of any party, nobody talks of a Muslim or anything associated with Muslims today as such. The last small thing which came up just yesterday, a Muslim girl had taught her class in a Gujarat school. The school decided to hold a function wherein all the toppers and those who came second and third were supposed to be given their certificates and prizes, etc. In a travesty of justice, the girl who came second was called on stage to receive her award, her trophy, but the Muslim girl who topped in the class was not given her certificate, her trophy at that time, and told that she will receive it later in school. Maybe the school did not want to be seen garlanding a Muslim girl, because after all, we are living in the age when rape convicts are garlanded, when demolishers of mosques are garlanded, when lynch specialists are garlanded, and a Muslim is none of these. Today, if the Muslim community fights this battle all by itself, it is not likely to win, because the entire dispensation is, so to say, ruled against us. And every evening, our media, particularly electronic media, tells us where do they stand, what are their priorities. Media is no longer about justice, fairness, cross-checking their facts or whatever. Media has become the handmaiden of the government of India. It celebrates every victory of Narendra Modi. It rejoices at the defeat of the opposition. When a Muslim man commits even a minor error or mistake anywhere, it becomes the talk of the nation. When a Muslim girl is gang raped in Jammu or elsewhere, it is hushed under the carpet. We have programs where anchors have had taglines like Mandir Hamara, Ram Hamare, Masjid Wale Kahan se padhare. And when lynching has taken place, then they don't say that a Muslim man was waylaid and attacked or killed or any such thing. The expression is Gorakshaks kill a man, or Gorakshaks kill a man going to kill a cow. Something on those lines, do they say, day in, day out. They didn't even leave Hamid Ansari, the former Vice President of India, when he penned his biography. This is the mindset that no Muslim is worthy of praise, no Muslim is worthy of positive coverage, be it Hamid Ansari, be it Dr. Kafil Khan, or more recently, be it any Muslim who saves the life of a Hindu, as was the case in Noor, or a Sikh who saved the lives of Muslims, because Muslims are not heroes. They cannot save any, they can't do any good thing. And a person who saves the life of a Muslim has not done a good thing. The only way we can get out of this condition, as India is walking down the lane of Germany of 1930s and 40s, is for the majority community to speak up. I understand there are millions of my countrymen and women from the Hindu community who disapprove of what is being done to Indian Muslims and Christians and even other communities, but they stay quiet. They don't speak up from public platform. Maybe fear governs their action. Maybe in some cases it could be indifference too. But I got a ray of hope more recently. I had done an edit page piece for the Hindu where I work about the plight of beleaguered Muslims of India. And in that piece, Alhamdulillah went viral, and it was followed by an interview with Mr. Karan Thapar, which too was well received. But the important thing was, I got some 3,000 to 4,000 mails from people from different parts of the world. So many people, largely from India, but many others from US, Canada, UK, France, etc. as well. And they were 95% of them were Hindus, and they all, almost all, extended full support to me full support to Indian minorities. And some 80-year-old people, 90-year-old people, 70-year-old people even apologize for the actions of their Hindu countrymen. So they've had nothing to do with them. They have no direct involvement with them. They've never met these people. But they still felt sorry at what these people are doing to the minorities in India. So they apologized to me in writing. If these people come forward, raise their voice, then inshallah we shall overcome. Because today the Muslim of India is voiceless. He needs somebody to lend his voice so that he also gathers courage, musters courage, and speaks up. He cannot fight this battle all alone. And if anybody feels that this is just a passing phase and okay, it doesn't concern me directly, and how can I stop what is happening in Manipur, or how can I stop what has happened in Mewat and so on, then I can only remind those people of what happened in Germany and what Martin Niemöller wrote. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak up because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak up because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew. Until finally they came for me, and there was no one else left to speak for me. Today, if you do not speak up for Indian Muslims, and to a lesser extent Indian Christians, rest assured these people will not limit themselves to Muslims and Christians. After Muslims and Christians, they'll go for Dalits. After Dalits, they will go for women. And then for anybody who does not agree with their philosophy of Ek Bharat, Ek Dharm, Ek Zaban, one India, one religion, one language. And that will be the day. You'll have nobody to speak for you. The time to raise your voice is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ziya Saab. Quite depressing, of course. And it's not that we don't know. Most of all these are in the news, actually. And people know on the, whether in India or outside, what's going on in India. The thing, as you said, is people are not talking as loudly as they should have. And there is a hope with the Bharat Jodo or that kind of activity or unification of opposition that maybe there will be a pressure. So let's hear the concluding remark by Manisha Mathews, and then after that we will have a question and answer session. Thank you very much, Ziya Saab. Okay, Manisha ji.
Firstly, thank you to the Indian Diaspora Washington DC Metro for inviting me to this talk. Before I start with my concluding remarks, I just wanted to mention that, just want to set the record straight about the fact that I am not Director Atlantic Books. I am, in fact, just a publishing consultant with Atlantic, and I'm also not formerly Vice President SAGE. I left SAGE at the designation of Associate Vice President. And in any case, I am here as an Indian citizen. I'm here as an author, a researcher, an educator, to express my views about how the Indian Muslim feels in today's new India. And Ziya has, he's put forward so many instances of what is happening in our country today, which is, it's terrible. It's something that, pains all of us, I think, who are secular Indians. Because this is not the country that we were brought up in. This is not a country that we want India to be. And I've known Ziya for a few years now. We are friends now, but I started as a fan of his journalism. He's a brilliant journalist, and I only knew him as a brilliant journalist. It's sad to see him speaking as an Indian Muslim, because he has to do it these days. He's not a public speaker. I know that he's a writer. He's someone who writes on a daily basis. He's an author. And he's become a public speaker because he has to speak about the Muslim community, which has been silenced by the current political dispensation. It has also been silenced by the silence of all of us around who are not speaking up for all the things that are happening against them. That's why people like Ziya have to, do this job of waking up the entire Indian community and saying that this can't be done in our names. Not in. I am here to say that this can't be done in my name, not in my name. The current political dispensation wants us to is spreading a lie. It's saying that Hindu khatre mein hai. Hindus are in danger. But I feel it's not Hindus who are in danger. What is in danger is the secular fabric of this country. What is in danger is the constitution of this country. What is in danger is this largest democracy in the world. These are the things at danger. It is not Hindus who are in danger. There are several people who are speaking up, people who can write, they are writing, people who can speak, they are speaking, people who can make movies, they're making movies. A lot of, a recent book that was released by, that was written by Parakala Prabhakaran, Mr. Parakala Prabhakaran. He talks about the lies that are being spread, by the current political dispensation. They are talking about how Muslims are increasing in number, and that's why Hindus are in danger. It's a total lie that is being spread, but there are people who are believing it. He has dedicated an entire chapter talking about population studies in India. He talks about how there is absolutely no truth to any of those things. But the way it's being put out, the way social media is full of such fake news, people are believing it, and people are acting on those beliefs. I feel the current hostility towards Indian Muslims is totally unfounded and irrational. We have to first of all acknowledge that there is a hostility. I live in Delhi and I see that hostility every day, and it is totally unfounded. It is totally irrational. But there are certain sections of the society that are believing in it. It is just a very convenient way to sidestep an entire community of people, to create a fear in the minds of a majority community that they are in some way in some sort of future. There is absolutely no truth to this. The more people who understand these things speak up, I think we can bring all of these people who are probably on the fringe, not knowing how to go about these things. We can probably bring them on our side, make them understand that we have to question all these lies that are being spread around. I was brought up in North India, even though I am from South India. And as a child, I remember that, I was brought up in Roorkee, which is a place where lots of Muslims and Hindus lived together peacefully at least. And we just used to wait for each other's festivals, because if it is Diwali, then we would celebrate Diwali. If it is Eid, then we are looking forward to Sivai, and we're looking forward to lots of good food. But that, that sort of a situation doesn't seem to be there anymore now. We don't go to each other's houses. There are families that are telling their children not to befriend, Muslim children, which really saddens me. My son studies in a Delhi school. He comes and tells me of, such instances, and that deeply saddens me, because children are all alike. Whatever we teach them is what they learn, right? Yesterday, I was coming back from Udaipur, and there was a Muslim gentleman sitting next to me in the flight. And he was Muslim, I know, because of his beard. And I saw him and I looked around. The fear in me, for him made me look around to see that people are respectful towards him, that he is not in some sort of a danger. And then he started speaking on the phone, and he used phrases like, he said inshallah, he said some of those things that you would hear in a Muslim speak in conversations. And again, I was fearful for him, because I felt, because of all the recent happenings that have gone on, the recent train incident where a railway protection officer goes around killing Muslims because he can identify them as Muslims. Right. So I was scared for him, but that's not the India I was brought up in, and that's not the India that I want my son to be brought up in. The idea of India that we want to leave for our children is a secular, democratic India that believes in equality for all. I don't want to live in an India which has first-class citizens and second-class citizens. And as a woman, I'm scared, because regardless of my religion, the regressive politics that is being played out affects me as a woman, because because of my gender, by virtue of my gender, I'm a second-class citizen in this country today, because of the regressive politics that is being played out. I can see what's happening in Manipur. I can see what's happening in different parts of the country. And my son tells me that he is a apatheist, which means that he doesn't care whether God exists or not. But he has a surname by which he can be identified. So whether he cares whether God exists or not, or whether he believes in God or not, he is going to be judged by his surname in this current new India. But that's not what the India that I want. I don't want anybody to be judged by their surnames, or what they eat, or what they wear, or how they look like. That's not probably the India that any of us wants. In closing, I would just say that, as a book lover, there are certain books that I have loved reading, but I've always wanted that none of that should come true. One of the books, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It is something that haunts me, because I don't want my India to go into a situation where what is written in that book comes true for the women in India and, for other communities. And what I can also see that what is being played out in today's India is what George Orwell wrote in Animal Farm. And a lot of people are not able to see that. I just hope and pray that a lot more people are able to see what is being played out in front of their eyes. They are able to call out the lies that are being told to them. And we are able to stand up for each other, because like Ziya said at the end, tomorrow they'll come for us and there will be no one left to speak for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manisha. It was very effective and very right. So what we believe in, what a lot of others believe in, but they are not speaking that loudly, as you have said so very well. Now we are inviting Professor Aditya Mukherjee to express for a few minutes. As you all know, or most of you know, he is a very well-known historian in India, and a very activist person also. He is fully engaged in all these things and against Hindutva politics. And he has expressed so many times on this forum. So, Aditya ji, your turn to express for a few minutes, please.
What Ziya Saab told us, as Razi Saab, you said that we know much of it, we don't know all of it, but it needs to be said. It needs to be said publicly, and it needs to be said much more by the majority community than Ziya Saab. It is unfortunate that it has fallen on his shoulder to bring out and the enormity of the marginalization of the Muslims. that it is not somebody else who is doing it. It is indeed very sad. Ziya Sahab is absolutely correct. Socialism was thrown out of the window some time ago, and secularism is now being thrown out. And the third element, which is very important, with secularism being thrown out goes democracy. And that adds up to the last point that was made by Manisha also. Once democracy goes, everybody loses. So it is not a question, this Nimular issue is the correct statement. It is not a question of the Muslims losing it. It is like saying कि कश्मीर गया तो कोई बात नहीं, कश्मीरी problem है. Now everybody's realized that there are many Kashmirs in the make in this country today. So we just cannot ignore the issue of Muslims, of the minority, simply because we are not part of that minority. As for Ziya Sahab's, I'm glad he ended with some hope, which came from the enormous response his recent Hindu article had done. I must have circulated hundreds of people myself, because it was so painful and so powerful, and that the response he got. But I would say that there is a larger reality from which we can draw some hope, which is that even though the BJP or the Hindu Rashtra people are now hold state power, not only in the provinces but in the state, in the central government, they have the Raj, and yet they have not succeeded in making yet India into Hindu Rashtra. Their viewpoint is not yet the common sense of the Indian people. It is the common sense of some Indian people in some parts of the country, but there is, as you know, BJP is, at least South India is BJP free considerably, not entirely, but considerably. There is hope there. But I would like to end with saying that, of course, we must draw from that hope. But I think the central point politically today, to me, is what Ziya Sahab was aiming at, which is that unless the political parties are not willing to forefront it, unless they stop being afraid of the Muslim word, nothing will happen. It is not nothing will happen. Of course, civil society must fight, is continuing to fight, they're doing their job. Peasant organizations in large scale have got together in Haryana and UP and have said that we will not allow us to be split up on the basis of religion. It is not that nothing is happening, but must take it up, and there we must draw from our own history. Draw from Gandhiji. What is he doing at independence? Why is he in Calcutta protecting Muslims? Why is he in Delhi protecting Muslims, saying that unless each Muslim goes back to his home and unless each mosque is repaired, I will die? There is no hiding. And that is why they have to now destroy Gandhi, they have to destroy Nehru. But we have to recover from our own history. We have to recover from our own history. We have to recover from the common sense that Manisha reflects and millions of other people, young people like her, reflect. There is a ground on which to build, but we need to put together our political energies without any doubt. That must be done. Till that is done, each individual, like Ziya Sahab, like me, like Manisha, we must continue to speak up as much as we can. And thanks to Razi Sahab, you're doing a great job of keeping the voice alive in one part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya ji. Now we will move on to question and answer session. But before that,
can I say something?
Yeah. After that, please. Just an announcement for coming. We have to keep on doing other disciplines also. This is part of our larger society. We must remain engaged in literature. We must remain engaged in politics. We must remain engaged in all the matters, which makes a very vibrant community, global community. So Danish Iqbal, as always, at the end of month, presents something. So he will present with Anita and Rakesh Sharma of Delhi, Zindagi hai Zindagi. Move over to question and answer session, and which will be moderated as usual by our host, Dr. Rafat Hussain. Rafat, take over, please.
Thank you, Razi Bhai. And before we begin the question and answer session, I would like to thank Ziya Us Salam Saab for an excellent talk, though it is depressing, but hold on, let me unmute.
Hello,
Who is this?
I am Dr. Diwakar Goel here. Hello,
Okay.
am I audible?
Yeah, no, hold on for a second, please. Okay, everyone is muted now. Thank you. So, Ziya Saab's talk was, though it's depressing, but brilliantly sketch the situation of Muslims in New India. And also like to thank Anjana Rajan for introductory remark, though we missed her part of her introduction, and Manisha Mathews for the concluding remarks, and for Aditya Mukherjee Saab to chip in for the remark as well as the final concluding remarks. So session is open for the question and answer. And please raise your digital hand, and you can also put your question or interest in the chat box. I will keep checking both of them. So let's begin with the raised hand. First person is Imtiaz Saab, and then I will call Dr. Diwakar Goel, and next person will be Iltafat Hassan. Okay, Dr. Imtiaz Saab.
Thank you for taking my question. What is happening in India is very distressing and deplorable. The brainwashed, misinformed bigots have normalized hate, and that is for a reason. There is a religious, ideological, and political need for the BJP to polarize, to stay in power, or to keep winning elections. Now, bad as it is, what the Muslims should be doing, the thing is, about 100 years ago in the United States, the condition of Afro-Americans or blacks was deplorable, worse than what is of Muslims in India. Jews were no better. There were signs in South, Jews and dogs not allowed in restaurants.
Hold on, who's in the background?
Okay, so I think what we need to focus on, that what the Muslims should be doing, and victimhood will not help. In the long run, we have to realize that people have gone through, nations have gone through very, very difficult periods, and they overcame their difficulties, and they are, I mean, the example is Germany, Japan, South Korea, China. So if other countries can recover from big disasters in their life, Muslims should be thinking. And what I notice here is that if we want to parcel out our problems to others to solve, that's not going to help. A good friend of mine, a Parsi, very active person here, he shares our distress and pain, but he keeps telling me, Imtiaz, what are the Muslims doing about it? So, I mean, here we have Hindus for Human Rights, they are doing a lot, and there are some Muslim groups also working, advocacy, etc. But the Muslim elite, well of Muslims in India, they are happy in their individual cocoons, and they do not come forward and accept responsibility for the community.
Imtiaz Saab, sorry for interruption. Please come to the question.
My question is again, what the Muslims in India should be doing beyond victimhood.
Okay, thank you. Ziya
Sir,
Saab.
before I answer, can I ask Anjana Rajan to complete her talk? We could not hear her at the beginning. Now apparently her network is okay, and then I answer this question.
Is she back?
Yes, she's very much there.
Okay, please go ahead and finish in a couple of minutes.
I don't know if it will cooperate. I just know that I said the video that I had previously recorded, in case I would not be heard, it has finally reached Ziya Saab that he will forward to you later. Actually, I was thinking, totally in agreement with what Aditya Saab has said, that it is, of course, it is for the majority community to take a certain responsibility. The reason strength is in numbers. And I think that society has made us in.
Okay, we still have a difficulty in hearing her. So Ziya Saab, what do you say?
I think situation remains same. So
Yeah.
maybe later on at the end.
Yeah, it gets
We can
better.
try at the end again.
Yeah.
So he was,
Okay.
Imtiaz was asking me about what Muslims can do beyond victimhood.
Yes.
There is no attempt to get any brownie points on the so-called victimhood. It's just an expression of today's reality. Secondly, as I said in my talk also, we need to build bonds. Muslims cannot fight this battle all by themselves. They have to align with right-meaning people of all communities. As Professor Mukherjee also said, and I also referred in passing in my talk, that there are millions of Hindus who are against what is happening, the politics of bigotry, hatred, violence, etc. But they are not speaking up as loudly as they should, as you also referred to. So we have to join hands with the majority community. We had to join hands with Christians and Sikhs, who too have suffered in varying degrees, and make sure that we keep talking. We have to raise our voice. The moment we go into silence, the government takes that as a mark of fear and intimidation. If we are intimidated today, tomorrow we'll be annihilated. So we have to speak up today. That's what the Shaheen Bagh women did. And that's what the Muslim community has to do, but not by itself.
Thank you. Dr. Devakar Goel Saab. Unmute yourself, please. Yeah, unmute yourself, Devakar Saab. Let me ask you. Okay, I ask you to unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
रिया साहब बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपकी तहरीर सुनने के लिए, सब लोगों को सुनने के लिए. My viewpoint is actually I wear many caps. My association with Ziya Saab is very long. I'm a poet, writer, bureaucrat, advocate, professor, whatnot. So many caps. And what I'm listening today, you see, I was in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, at the invitation of Prince Salam also, and there I was the only Indian. And you see, I have not seen in any country across the world. I visit as an aviation expert and as a management expert. I start in Riyadh as a master of ceremony. About 40 countries were there, 400 delegates in Riyadh. I say Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I started as master of ceremony. So that does not make, you see, when I am at a land and I am saying Bismillah Rahman Rahim, and like Ziya Saab was telling कि अब्बू अम्मी या ये चीजें मुझे समझ नहीं आता हमारी तहजीब कहाँ जा रही है. मेरी
Devakar Saab, you have put all
मैं
your
एक क्वेश्चन ये कहना चाहता हूं मैं कि कुछ रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बहुत ज्यादा आती है मुस्लिम्स के लिए. मैं एक छोटे बच्चे से पूछता हूं कि तुम नमाज पढ़ते हो? बोला हाँ. क्या है उसमें? कहता मैं पढ़ लेता हूं, उसका मतलब नहीं मालूम. अब आपने जो इस तरह की चीजें जो इस्लाम की आप सही तालीम बच्चों को नहीं दे रहे, उनके दिमाग में ये चीजें जो गलत फहमी हिंदुओं के और मजहब में आ रही है इस्लाम के बारे में, क्या हमें जानना चाहिए नहीं चाहिए कि इस्लाम क्या है, कितना ज्यादा पायस है, कितना पीस लविंग है, कितनी अच्छी उसमें तहजीब है? वो चीजें कहाँ आ रही हैं? सब नेगेटिव थिंकिंग, साहब काफिर है उसको मार दो, हिंदू को मार दो, फलाना ये कर दो. ये सब चीजें एक छोटा बच्चा जो है जिसको मदरसों में, अब्दुल कलाम साहब ने सही कहा था कि जितने मदरसे हैं जहाँ अनएजुकेटेड मौलवीज बनते हैं, अपने फतवा देते रहते हैं, हूरों की बात करते रहते हैं, ये सब करते रहते हैं, इन सबको बंद करने के लिए कौन आएगा? कम से कम हमें बताया जाए कुरान क्या है, सही तालीम क्या है, मुस्लिम क्या है। मुसलमान का मतलब होता है मुसल्लल ईमान। कितने लोग मुसलमान हैं मुसल्लल ईमान? कितने मुसलमानों को मालूम है कि मुसलमान की मीनिंग क्या है? केवल ये कह देने से कि सब बिस्मिल्लाह, मतलब मैंने ये कहा ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह, इतने से शायद कलमा हो गया। अरे मीनिंग तो बताइए आप सबको। कोई शर्म नहीं है एक हिंदुस्तानी को? मजहब, हर मजहब में, मैं मस्जिद में भी जाता हूँ, चर्च में भी जाता हूँ, मेरी एजुकेशन भी क्रिश्चियन एटमॉस्फेयर में, फादर पुलिस में थे, मुझे तो कभी लगा ही नहीं। मेरी तालीम हुई, मेरी शायरी जो है कैफी साहब के पास जानकी कुटीर में शामें कटी, अली सदात जाफरी साहब थे, नुसरत फतेह अली थे, नौशाद साहब थे। हमारे जाति ताल्लुकात रहे, कहीं मजहब बीच में आया ही नहीं।
Moderator,
इंसानियत की
let's
आज के
keep it to the minimum.
आज
Like
के
not
जिया
public
साहब,
speech here.
मेरी
Like see, this is speaking and
मेरी
giving some
मेरी
public
मेरी
program.
रिक्वेस्ट ये है,
टॉपिक पे
दिवाकर
मेरी
साहब,
रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि कृपया
दिवाकर
करके
साहब, स्टॉप।
बताइए इस्लाम क्या है।
This is not Ijtama. Like you can do your preaching
दिवाकर
later on.
साहब,
Like
प्लीज
let us
ask
I
the
am not
question.
preaching. I am not
You have a
preaching. I am
question?
giving my viewpoint. I am
No.
giving my
टॉपिक पे
viewpoint. I
बात
am not
करें,
preaching.
टॉपिक पे।
yeah, but this
Okay,
is
go.
question. You need to
टॉपिक
ask
ये है,
question.
अगर
Viewpoints
This
like
is
you can end the program.
Okay, Rafat,
दिवाकर साहब.
Rafat, I stopped him. Rafat, just ask, request people only not to make speeches,
Yeah,
not to make comments.
because there are many.
And that's it.
Thank you. There are many people lined up, and this is a very interesting topic, and people wanted to ask questions. And no discussion, please. If you have something to say, please go to the chat. And as Diwakar Saab already done that, and everyone appreciate his point of view. Thank you so much, Diwakar Saab. And let's move to the question and answer session. And we really appreciate Diwakar Saab's thought. And let's move on to the next person, and that is Nazir Ahmed Saab. And after that, I will come back to Iltafat Hassan. And there are few questions on chat, so please be patient. Go ahead, Nazir Saab.
Thank you, Dr. Ziya, for a comprehensive presentation on the status quo. My question relates to the role of education in this unfolding tragedy, one aspect of which is state control of primary and secondary education and its implications, not only for regional autonomy, but for regional cultures, history, and more specifically for the minorities. What has happened is the centralization of education, which is canonized by a constitutional amendment of 1976, is now used by the center to thrust its Hindutva agenda. After all, the history of southern India is different from that of northern India. The differences in language, culture are obvious. Mr. Stalin of Tamil Nadu has spoken of this need, as well as Siddharamaya of Karnataka. We discussed this issue when I served in the Karnataka State Knowledge Commission with Dr. Kasturi Rangan, but we were helpless because the purse strings are held by the center. The question is there any possibility that the southern states, along with the northeastern states, can come together to press for local control of public primary education, or the new India coalition will adopt this issue as a part of its manifesto? After all, it will help the states in general and the minorities in particular.
Thank you, Ziya Saab.
Well, there are a couple of things over here. Just as we often say, we live in two Indias, between India and Bharat. Similarly, within India, there are two divisions, north of the Vindhyas and south of the Vindhyas. Fortunately, people in South India, they still have their wits about them. They still adhere to the idea of India, be it Tamil Nadu or Kerala or Telangana or even Andhra, and hopefully Karnataka too. Life is different over there. Muslims and Hindus still live in brotherhood. There is shared space, shared life, rituals, and everything. And in those places, as we just learned from Kerala government, whatever the central government was trying to omit from the NCERT history textbooks has been retained by the state government over there. Hopefully, when the India alliance wins, and there's a huge if they win, hopefully they will be able to rectify some of the wrongs. But these wrongs go very deep and they cannot just be wished away with one administrative act or something like that. Because what this government has done is to just antagonize citizens, divide them on the basis of their caste. This kind of division will take a long time to go away. Just as after 47, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Congress worked hard to talk of our shared past in medieval India and that kind of thing, to apply a balm on the wound of partition. The new alliance will have to do something similar. Whether they will be up to it or not is another question altogether. But what, even talking of tables and history, what this government has very smartly done is it has omitted virtually all the good actions of Muslim rulers, medieval rulers, who were not necessarily Islamic rulers. So they have omitted all the good parts which they did and retained only the wrong actions. For instance, we have the well-documented case of Iltutmish and how he was against forced conversion. We have the market reforms of Alauddin Khilji and also how he protected India from Mongol invasions. And we have all the love for astronomy and astrology and art of Humayun and miniature paintings of Jahangir and buildings of Shah Jahan. All those things are being omitted. What a person is being today, youngster is being told today is it was not just Aurangzeb who was evil, who was violent, it was every Muslim. In the past, we had the concept of a bad Muslim and good Muslim in politics and history. So Akbar was put forward as a good Muslim, a paragon of excellence. Today, there is a sustained attempt to diminish his glory also. And it comes across very clearly in the attempt to tell the youngsters that the Battle of Haldi Ghati was won by the Rajputs and not Akbar. So those are the challenges we are faced with. But if India Alliance does win, then yes, there is hope. Having said that, the practicality of an alliance between North Indian states and South Indian states is, to put it politely, extremely remote. Because North Indian states swear by Hindutva propaganda, which is all about exclusion, not assimilation.
Thank you. Iltifat Hassan sir.
Thank you, Rafat, and thank you, Ziya Saab, for a very enlightening presentation. I don't think India is the only country where this is happening. Your neighbor, Pakistan, from where I come from, we recently burned down 20 churches and killed innocent Christians who are really the lowest of the low caste for us, and they are constantly persecuted. I'm seeing this from the 70s, which were very tolerant, to today, where religion is just becoming so dominant and a tool for hatred and just persecuting the minorities. Ziya Saab, is there anything happening, has anything happened in the last 30 or 40 years which has led to this intolerance on both sides? Also, in Europe, we are seeing the same thing. In America, we are seeing the same thing. What is it that the society is turning into so intolerant towards these minorities? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So you just raised the topic of Pakistan and the churches, and I'm glad you did, because Pakistan also seems to be hurtling downwards at a very rapid pace. After all, it was in Pakistan only some 5 years ago when our temple was attacked by local Muslims. But within a week, the temple was not only repaired, but also given a new coat of paint and handed over to the Hindu community, and the attackers were put in jail. I hope all those who have attacked the churches and killed the innocent meet the punishment they deserve. You talked of how and where did we go wrong. That's a difficult one, but one simple answer for that is Ever since RSS was established in 1925, there has been a very strong Hindutva lobby in India. It was not confined only to RSS or Jansangh earlier or to the BJP after 1980. There was a very strong segment of the Indian National Congress which was all about practicing Hindutva. Many of the Congress senior leaders and presidents like Lala Lajpat Rai, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, etc., they stood for the Hindu right only. And the Congress all along played the politics of soft Hindutva. BJP has just taken it one notch higher. Where the Muslim community has erred and erred badly in last 75 years is the Constitution of India gives us complete right to establish our own educational institutions, to govern them and to teach whatever we want to the kids, like what our Christian brothers have done through their millions of schools across the country and colleges. Unfortunately, the Muslim organizations, the Jamaat-e-Islami, Jamiat Ulema Hind, Tablighi Jamaat, etc., have not paid as much attention to education as they should have. Probably the only Muslim Jamaat which has paid even a semblance of attention to education is Jamaat-e-Islami, and in a very limited context. You see, Tablighi Jamaat is still insisting on chilla and those kind of things. They would never think of establishing a school or a college. Same for Jamiat, which asks its people, its members, to swear on the Constitution of India. But how many colleges have they set up across the country? They invariably go back to Deoband. And for how long will it continue to live in history? Deoband came up in 1866. After that, has the organization built any university of note? That if we had done that, then things could have been and would have been remarkably different. Also, it's important, as Diwakar Goyal Sahab said, but he probably didn't put it in as many words. Muslims have not understood what is there in the Quran. They have just considered Quran to be a book, a holy book, a book of rituals to be read in Islam, in namaz and recited when somebody dies. They have never tried to understand the Quran. We read in the Quran, Rabbi Zidni Ilma, O Lord, increase me in knowledge. How much attention have Muslims paid to increasing knowledge? And therein lies the answer.
Thank you. So there is a question from chat from Meenu Guadavia. So do you think that international community can put pressure on India to change the anti-Muslim policies?
I guess our experience teaches that yes, it is possible and it has been done. We saw what happened in the case of Congress spokesperson Nupur Sharma, who said a few blasphemous things about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how West Asian countries reacted to that. It's important for these countries and even Western countries to stand up not only when somebody seeks to malign Islam, but also when somebody seeks to kill a Muslim. When somebody preaches economic boycott of Muslims, when somebody doesn't allow you to pray at your home, it is at such a time then voices for justice should be raised, and justice transcends international political barriers.
Thank you, Ziya Sahab. There is also a concern raised by Dr. Saeed Zadi. He is asking, are we talking about weaknesses in Islam or a current situation in India? Good point.
We're talking about current situation in India. It has nothing to do with weakness in Islam. There's no weakness in Islam. There is weakness in the Muslim community, and there is the overwhelming sentiment pummeled into the minds of millions of Hindus that Hindu khatre mein hai, as Manisha was referring to. This is probably the first time in recent years that we have heard that the majority community, with more than 80% members of India, citizens of India are Hindus, are in danger from a minority community which has no Muslim chief minister, no Muslim minister at the center, has never had a Muslim prime minister, doesn't have a Muslim chief justice. And then, even then, Hindu khatre mein hai. It should be the Muslims.
Thank you. So now coming back to the raised hand, and Rajaullah Saab, After that, Abdul Jabbar and Ibrahim Sheikh. Rajaullah Saab, please go ahead. I ask you to unmute. And please be brief, everyone, because there are not many people lined up. So direct pointed question.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, I wrote down something so I won't have to say here in a chat. Somehow it did not show up. Maybe I did not hit enter. Anyway, what I pointed out was that it is distressing to see we had over 125, I think, attending. Out of that, I could barely count a few names which were non-Muslims. Ziya Saab very correctly and others pointed out that just Muslims alone cannot solve problem. They have to work with the majority community. So, and I have always said that we should interact, individually and at the mohalla level and city level. But my question is to Ziya Sahab and others, how do we work? How do we cooperate, take the cooperation of the majority of Hindus, in my belief, who are good majority of the majority community, who are silent majority, how to activate them and take them along? Without their help, problem cannot be solved. So that's my question. Thank you.
Sir, as I said, so many people wrote to me after my write-up appeared in the Hindu. Thousands of them expressed solidarity with us, and they were not in agreement with what was being done in the name of Hindutva by so many people in India about all the violence being meted out to Muslims and Christians. But as you rightly said, is for the majority community to speak up. Silence can also be taken as being complicit. So the elections of 2024 will tell us whether the silence was complicit or they were just waiting for the right occasion to strike at the government.
Thank you. Abdul Jabbar Saab.
Thank you. It's a great discussion. Thank you for that. My question for you as a journalist, how do you see the status of the mainstream media? I read only the Hindu and the news, the Indian Express for getting news from India. I came here more than 42 years here to the US. I'm from the southmost part of Tamil Nadu. So I wanted to explore a little bit about what is the status of the newspapers, mainstream newspapers in India. Thank you.
Sir, in your choice of newspapers lies the answer. Today,
Which
there are
one?
only a couple of newspapers in the country which will talk in terms of justice or strike a balance, report news as it is. Most of the newspapers in India and in English and virtually all in Hindi are tom-tomming the achievements, in double inverted comma, achievements of the Modi government. They have said goodbye to all norms of journalism, of asking why, how, etc. They have said goodbye to about presenting a counterpoint. It's all a one-man show. If you pick up a Hindi newspaper today, and largely for the English newspapers today, barring the Hindu and maybe to a great extent, Telegraph.
So how do you counter that?
See, it's a very simple thing. Most of the newspapers are owned by certain business houses, and business houses are, I would say, in collusion with the government. They have too many interests, too much at stake to stand up for principles. At such a time, the best job is being done not by our dailies, but by the portals like Scroll, Wire, etc., even Quint and others. They are sticking their neck out. They are presenting facts as they are. And for a man who desires prompt coverage and who wants things to be shown as they are and not necessarily from the perspective of one community, I think portals are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Jabbar Saab, you please also include Telegraph in your list. It is undoubtedly the bravest newspaper at the moment. The Telegraph front page is a must-see every day. And also in
Jamal Sahab was raising his hand.
Hindi journalism mein bhi, please. I mean, there is now Satya Hindi. There is 4 p.m. news. You know, there is
not newspapers. No, I said portals.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank you. Shai Siddiqui Saab.
Thank you so much. I'm really
After
grateful
Shahid
for this.
Siddiqui-
Yeah,
Go
thank
ahead.
you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so my suggestion that I actually raised last week was that if you can't beat them, join them, which is that it is impossible for Congress or Samajwadis or others to take care of the Muslim problem. Muslims have really relegated to the state of Shudra, and there is no light which is coming to really overcome this darkness. However, my suggestion was, and I'm still on that if we offer BJP that we give you loyalty of Muslim vote, and you can rule the country for the next 10, 20, 25 years, 30 years. But in exchange, we need certain guarantees that we have our security, we have our freedom to pray, we have our freedom to earn, basic things that the Constitution gives us. That might be a better way because our resources are so limited to fight the darkness that we are surrounded by, that it is very difficult to come over the challenges that we have. So this is my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wants to say something?
Sir, I
Parti Saab or
respectfully
Ziya
disagree.
Saab?
I respectfully disagree with it over here because what was preventing Prime Minister Narendra Modi from speaking out against lynching of Muslim men? What was preventing him from repeated attacks on Muslim mosques and even dargahs? If he had spoken out, if he had gone to the houses of the victims, his actions would have spoken a million words. He keeps quiet even when his own chief minister says we do not need the Muslim vote. And not just in Assam, we heard the same thing in Rudrapur before the Uttarakhand elections. The MLA came to the city square and said, all those Muslims who are here, you listen to me. Hindi mein bola tha, kaan khol ke sun lo. I do not need your vote. When the ruling party members go to town saying they don't need your vote, what do you plead with? Are you pleading for your life, begging forgiveness? Because there's nothing called equality in such an arrangement.
Thank you. Aditya Saab was shaking hand. I want to hear his views. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think the idea is atrocious. I mean, join hands with evil to fight evil is not something. It doesn't work. And
You said it in word.
example of Nimular that Ziya Saab had given. Nimular was a Christian pastor. He wanted to play ball with Hitler. And he realized toward the end of his life, he was put in a concentration camp, and he survived simply because the day before he was to be exterminated, the war ended. And then the question was asked in the Stuttgart Declaration that what did the church not do or do which allowed Hitler to come to power? And that is when he wrote this poem. So colluding is not the answer at all. I mean, it would be disastrous.
Thank you. So after Taha Jamal, I will come back to Fazal Bhai because he has a little bit different views he has posted. So I wanted to hear from him.
Rafat, I don't have a question.
I
was
know
just
you don't have a
appreciating
question,
what
but
Aditya Mukherjee ji is saying.
Okay, I know you don't have a question, but you are saying that the Indians majority will not collaborate with Muslims, and they will not, something like that. Okay.
We are living in an age where political parties do not put up Muslim candidates because they feel they will not get the Hindu vote. The BJP has systematically reduced the value of a Muslim vote. We had the recent case of Assam, where in the past there were 29 seats where Muslim vote was crucial. Now, after the recent decision earlier this week, now only 22 seats are left where Muslim vote is crucial. So many cases are there in UP where Muslims are in a majority or in a sizable percentage, say 35-40% of the population of that particular seat, and that seat is reserved for scheduled castes over there who are merely 5, 8, 10 or 12%. There is systematic attempt at annihilation of Muslims in Karnataka elections of 2018 and then in Delhi in 2020. every fourth Muslim found his name missing from the voter card. He had voted in the past, but he could no longer vote. So 75% Muslims still enjoy their right to vote. 25% of them have been disenfranchised. Add to that the fact that the number of seats where Muslim vote is important are being reduced with every election. Then on top of that, see, political parties, including the BJP, are not ready to put up Muslim candidates in elections. So a Muslim cannot contest election, a Muslim cannot vote in election, and where he does vote, his vote is of very limited value. The BJP has not given a single ticket to a Muslim in Gujarat in the last 25 years. In Rajasthan, since our independence, only two Muslims have won two Muslims have won elections as an MP. What are we talking about today? There are laws which are aimed at not just elimination of Muslims, but annihilation of Muslims. It will be a futile exercise to think otherwise.
Thank you. We are almost at the end of the question and answer, but I see one more hand is raised. Taha Jamal Saab, and a brief comment by Sayyid Amir. And then I will sacrifice my question and go back to Raziza.
I've got a query. This is to Ziya Saab, that why the South Indian is thankfully immune to what is happening in North India, and can South Indian philosophy or ideology can be implemented across India?
So there's a very simple reason. In South India, education is better. Economic parameters, they are better. Educational parameters, they are better. The North Indian states are supposed to be those ill states, Bimaru, as our media calls them. It includes Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, and now obviously Jharkhand, because it was part of Bihar earlier. So these Bimaru states lack in education, lack in economic development, and when there is rampant unemployment, it's easier to tell those people that it's your life in danger, it's your job which has been eaten up by a Muslim, and so on and so forth. If you see the figures of free groceries, ration, etc. being given by the Modi government in UP elections and earlier in 2019 also, most of it was given in the states of UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and not as much in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Not because the government was discriminating, but the percentage of poor was significantly less. And we can also go back in history for an answer to it. In South India, Islam arrived through traders. In Kerala first, and also in Gujarat and other parts of the country there. In North India, much of Islam came through invaders, though the contribution of Sufi saints cannot be overlooked.
Thank you. So Ziya Saab, we are over time. Just give one more comment from Sayyid Amir. Oh, Sayyid Zadi also raised hand, but please be brief, and then Razi Bhai has to conclude that.
So thanks for just
Amir.
1 minute, very short question. Of course, I've been listening. Nobody raised that question. How about Congress is not relevant? BJP is what it's doing. What about the third party? Anything going on in India, Pakistan? That PTI was a thing, and now it's the most popular. So, of course, the Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs. Any concentration on that on horizon?
So very briefly, Congress has formed an alliance with these so-called regional parties to contest elections next year. It includes DMK and Mamata Banerjee, Lalu's party, Nitish Kumar's party, and all others, including AAP. So let's hope they succeed. But I do not like the word regional party for somebody like Trinamool or YSR or DMK, because in many ways, until recently, BJP was also a regional party. Just because you are confined to Hindi belt, it doesn't make you a national party.
Okay, thank you. Sayyid Amir, please.
Thank you. We have experienced all around the world over history that demagogues always find some cause to fight against. They have to find an enemy, the other, to arouse their own supporters. I think virtually this is what happened in India. In my youth, it used to be that elections were decided on the basis of caste. If you Jat, the Jat community will vote for you. Now, what clever thing which BJP has done, very, very smart, they have eliminated the caste-based elections based on the basis of caste, but they have united it on the basis of Muslims. It's a very clever thing, and they are not going to give that up because this is the winning strategy. So I wonder, Professor Ziya Us Salam may agree or not, that in states or in constituencies where the Muslims have no hope of winning anything or eliminated almost, would it not be better for them to stay away from the elections and let the Congress or other parties contest on the basis of Hindu vote or non-Muslim vote, and only to fight, put candidates for Muslims where there is a hope of Muslims winning? So in that way, they will eliminate this element which is, it sustains as oxygen for Johnson.
Sir, I'll answer that very briefly. And I'm in full agreement with you and full marks to you for observing that trend. When the BJP came to power in 2014, in large parts of North India, we used to see cars where people used to give away their caste identity with great pride. They would write Jat on their windscreen or Kshatriya or even Yadav, etc. But over the last 1 year, 1.5 years, those caste identities have given way to one simple word, Hindu. Yes. So people are just announcing their religion on their car, not their caste anymore, just as you understood from the BJP's politics. Having said that Muslims should not contest elections from the seats where they do not stand a realistic chance of winning. Yes, that is correct. But the fact is nobody gives them seats anyway. Nobody will give them a ticket anyway, be it Congress or the BJP or Trinamool or any other party. They are shy of giving tickets to Muslims, and they give tickets only in those areas where Muslims are close to a majority.
Thank you. So before I hand over to Razi Saab, thank you so much, Ziya Saab, for your time. It was a long, more than 2 hours. And for your excellent. जी मैं मैडम हमीदा मैडम कहिए रजी साहब का टाइम आप काट रही हैं
मैं 2 मिनट से ज्यादा नहीं
जैसा मजाक कर
2 मिनट तो बहुत ज्यादा हो गया ना
हाँ 1 मिनट चलिए तो जिया साहब का बाकी सब बोलने वालों का शुक्रिया अदा करते हुए और इस मौजू की संजीदगी को समझते हुए बहुत संजीदा मौजू है मैं इसको जानती हूँ समझती हूँ और इसकी कद्र करती हूँ लेकिन जरा सा दिल दिमाग को हल्का करने के लिए एक शेर पेश करके इजाजत लेती हूँ और शेर है कि मैं बनाऊंगा नशेमन चमन की शाख शाख पर मैं बनाऊंगा नशेमन चमन की शाख शाख पर क्या मेरी ही जिद में बागबां सारा चमन जलाएगा नहीं जलाने देंगे और इंशाल्लाह नहीं जलेगा
Gautamda, thank you so much. That concludes the question and answer session. And thanks again for all the speakers, including Aditya Mukherjee Saab, who was so kind to chip in at the last minute. And now back to Razi Bhai.
Thank you, Rafat, and thank you, Ziya Saab. Thank you, Aditya ji. And if Manisha and other speakers are here, thank you all. मैं conclude क्या करूं, but I have also one short question. Yes, well, Muslim votes were not needed. That's what BJP said. But also BJP made quite sure one other factor, that this Muslim vote should never be consolidated to go in other party. It should be divided and distributed. This is single most important factor on which Congress has refound the strength. This combination in Karnataka and the coming 4 elections will show you that the combination of Dalit and the consolidated Muslim vote, because Muslims have found this strength, that if they consolidate, then they can defeat, any party can defeat BJP in the local or as well as. So this machine is going to be tested first in the assembly elections and later on. And as far as the evil, joining evil, as Shahid Saab was saying, well, in America and the West, they still talk about joining hands with Stalin to defeat Hitler. So don't forget that. There was a brief moment when Stalin was never embraced, or communism was never embraced by West, but became a partner to defeat Hitler. Or even Gandhiji said that to defeat Hitler, you have to join the hand with the Britishers to take arms. So there are situations